War has always been a domain defined by uncertainty, where the line between life and death is often measured in seconds. Yet beyond the tangible realities of weapons strategy and battlefield movement, there exists a far more elusive dimension, one that has quietly accompanied soldiers across generations. It is a dimension shaped by intuition, dreams, and in some cases deeply unsettling premonitions. Throughout history, countless accounts suggest that some individuals, for reasons we still cannot fully explain, seem to sense their own fate before it unfolded. One such account dates back to the early days of the First World War. A British officer, reflecting on an evening spent with fellow soldiers before returning to the front, described an encounter that would later haunt him. What began as a light-hearted visit to a fortune teller quickly turned unsettling when the reader, examining the palms of several officers, claimed she could see nothing, no lines, no future, only emptiness. At the time, the men dismissed it as theatrics. Yet within days of returning to combat, those same individuals were killed. Whether coincidence or something more profound, the experience left a lasting impression, not only on the officer who recorded it, but on anyone who later encountered the story. What makes such accounts compelling is not their rarity, but rather their frequency. Across memoirs, letters, and wartime testimonies, similar patterns emerge. Soldiers report vivid dreams, unshakable feelings of dread, or an inexplicable certainty about their impending death. While modern psychology might attribute these experiences to stress or heightened awareness in life-threatening environments, some cases resist such straightforward explanations. Consider the testimony of a Royal Air Force veteran during the Second World War. Stationed in North Africa, he recalled a conversation with a fellow pilot who had been deeply disturbed by a dream. In it, the pilot saw an aircraft crash in striking detail. His companions reassured him, suggesting that such dreams were a natural byproduct of their dangerous profession. Yet the pilot insisted this was different. He rarely dreamed at all. The following day, that same pilot was killed when his aircraft crashed. The precision of the dream, coupled with his prior unease, left those who knew him grappling with questions that had no clear answers. Experiences like these were not isolated to combat zones alone. The same veteran later described an incident during a transatlantic flight years after the war. While flying under clear night skies, his aircraft was reportedly tracked by radar alongside an unidentified object trailing closely behind. Despite repeated visual checks, no such aircraft could be seen. The object mirrored their movements before eventually disappearing from radar. Adding to the unease was the knowledge that a coffin was being transported in the cargo hold at the time. While likely explainable as a technical anomaly, the psychological weight of the moment lingered. Even more intriguing were the veteran's later experiences. On multiple occasions, he would awaken with an overwhelming sense that a disaster had occurred, only to later learn that a major aviation accident had indeed taken place. Such repeated coincidences challenge the boundaries between intuition and the unknown, raising the question of whether the human mind is capable of perceiving patterns or signals beyond conscious awareness. A similarly haunting story emerges from the Vietnam War. A ranger, known among his peers for his optimism and leadership, began experiencing recurring nightmares in which he saw himself dying on the battlefield. These were not vague or symbolic dreams. They were vivid, detailed, and disturbingly consistent. As his deployment continued, his demeanor changed. He grew withdrawn, began giving away personal belongings, and spoke openly about his belief that he would not survive the next mission. Despite the reassurances of his comrades, he remained calm yet resolute in his conviction. Days later, during a patrol, his unit was ambushed. He was fatally wounded, dying in precisely the manner he had described in his dreams. For those who witnessed his transformation and eventual fate, the experience left a lasting and deeply unsettling impression. What we see in these accounts is a recurring theme: individuals confronting an internal certainty that seems to transcend ordinary fear or probability. Whether interpreted as psychological phenomena, heightened instinct, or something more mysterious, these moments reveal a dimension of human experience that remains largely unexplored. As we continue, We will examine even more striking cases where such premonitions extend beyond soldiers in the field to figures whose influence shaped entire nations. The phenomenon of foreseeing one's own fate is not confined to anonymous soldiers on distant battlefields. In rare and deeply compelling instances, it appears in the lives of individuals whose decisions shaped the course of history itself. Among them stands Abraham Lincoln, a leader whose legacy is firmly embedded in the American identity, yet whose private experiences with dreams and premonitions reveal a far more complex and introspective figure than most historical summaries suggest. Lincoln's presidency unfolded during one of the most turbulent periods in American history, the American Civil War. Tasked with preserving the Union, he carried not only the weight of political division, but also the immense human cost of war. It is within this context that his recurring dreams take on a profound significance. Unlike the fleeting anxieties many might dismiss, Lincoln's visions were vivid, structured, and deeply unsettling. He once described a recurring dream in which he found himself drifting alone on a boat, surrounded by a dense, impenetrable fog. There was no oar, no means of steering, only a quiet, inevitable movement forward into the unknown. At first glance, such imagery aligns with what modern psychology might interpret as symbolic processing, a mind grappling with uncertainty, responsibility, and the burden of leadership. Yet Lincoln himself could not entirely dismiss the possibility that these dreams carried a deeper meaning. More disturbing still was another vision he recorded in striking detail. In this dream, Lincoln wandered through the White House enveloped in an eerie silence broken only by the sound of muffled sobbing. As he moved from room to room, he found no living person, only an atmosphere of grief. Eventually, he entered a chamber where a corpse lay guarded by soldiers. When he asked who had died, the answer came: the president had been assassinated. The clarity of this vision, combined with its emotional intensity, left him profoundly shaken. This was not merely a passing nightmare. According to those close to him, Lincoln spoke openly about these experiences in the days leading up to his death. He even confided in a bodyguard, expressing unease about dreams that seemed to foreshadow his assassination. Despite these warnings, whether interpreted as intuition or coincidence, he continued with his public duties. On April 14, 1865, at Ford's Theatre, that vision became reality. What distinguishes Lincoln's case is not just the apparent accuracy of his dream, but the intellectual framework through which he tried to understand it. He was neither blindly superstitious nor entirely dismissive. His thinking reflects a balance between skepticism and openness, an acknowledgement that while science and reason offer powerful tools, they may not yet fully encompass the breadth of human experience. To better understand these phenomena, we must also consider how different cultures interpret dreams and visions. In many indigenous traditions, such experiences are not anomalies, but integral aspects of life and decision-making. Among the Lakota people, for instance, visions were regarded as direct communications from the spiritual world, guiding individuals toward their purpose. One of the most compelling examples is Crazy Horse, a figure whose life has become emblematic of resistance and spiritual conviction. As a young man, he undertook a vision quest, a rite of passage involving isolation, fasting, and prayer. During this experience, he encountered a powerful vision, a warrior riding fearlessly through chaos, untouched by bullets and arrows, yet bound by strict conditions of humility and discipline. This vision would go on to define his life. As a leader, Crazy Horse became renowned for his bravery and apparent invulnerability in battle, particularly during conflicts such as the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Observers from both sides noted his uncanny ability to survive situations that should have been fatal. To his people, this was not coincidence. It was the fulfillment of a spiritual promise. Yet embedded within that same vision were elements that hinted at his eventual demise. In one sequence, he saw himself restrained by his own people, a moment that would later echo in reality when internal divisions and external pressures led to his capture. In 1877, while resisting confinement, he was fatally wounded, not in the chaos of open battle, but in a moment of struggle among allies and adversaries alike. The vision that had once symbolized protection also seemed to foreshadow the circumstances of his death. When we examine these stories collectively, from unnamed soldiers to presidents and legendary warriors, a pattern begins to emerge. These individuals did not simply fear death, they experienced a form of awareness that felt specific, personal, and at times unavoidable. Whether this awareness stems from subconscious processing, heightened intuition, or forces beyond current scientific understanding remains an open question. Modern theories influenced by thinkers like Sigmund Freud suggest that dreams are expressions of the subconscious mind, reflections of internal conflicts, desires, and fears. From this perspective, a soldier dreaming of death might simply be confronting the reality of constant danger. Yet such explanations struggle to fully account for the precise and repeated nature of some accounts. Ultimately, these stories challenge us to reconsider the boundaries of human perception. They remind us that even in an age defined by technological advancement and empirical reasoning, there remain aspects of experience that resist easy classification. War, with its intensity and proximity to mortality, may simply amplify these phenomena, bringing them into sharper focus. As you reflect on these accounts, consider not just whether they are true in a literal sense, but what they reveal about the human condition, the way we process fear, confront uncertainty, and search for meaning in moments where control slips beyond our grasp. If you found this exploration insightful, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective adds depth to conversations like this. And if you'd like to continue exploring stories that sit at the intersection of history, psychology, and the unexplained, consider subscribing and sharing this video with others who are just as curious.